Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've all had a good weekend, and I hope those of you, I suspect probably most of you, who have been self-isolating have found something useful or productive or at the very least entertaining to do. Yes, YouTube have taken the gloves off. We're allowed to talk about COVID-19, or as it's more popularly known, the coronavirus, without getting your videos demonetised. Not that Mingles with Jingles is monetised anyway. Thank you once again to everybody who supports me on Patreon. So yeah, it's finally time to talk about it. Personally, it hasn't really affected me that much. Obviously, if I ever catch the virus, it will probably affect me a lot. But, well, I mean, even if the worst comes to the worst, I've got a pretty kick-ass immune system. I was actually thinking about this earlier, and it took me a while to remember the last time I was actually seriously ill, and it was 30 years ago. I catch a very occasional flu, and I come down with minor colds and sniffles every now and then, but generally speaking, I'm the picture of health. I just turned 50, which is getting on a bit, but I'm not so old that I'm in one of the vulnerable age groups. And the whole self-isolating thing, I mean, I really do appreciate what a pain in the arse self-isolating must be for a lot of people. Although, you know, obviously the potential alternative is a damn sight worse. But it really hasn't affected me much at all. I mean, staying indoors, avoiding contact with other people, I mean, that's quarantine for most people. For me, that's just Tuesday. It's all of my entertainment is online. I work online from home. I'm not saying I haven't been affected, but I haven't been affected much. But I'm not trying to say that this isn't a big deal, because I know people who still have to go to work every day, and not because they work in emergency services. But while we're on that subject, big shout out and massive respect to everybody who does work in emergency services and who does continue to go to work every day to provide essential services throughout the outbreak. And I'm not just talking about the police, the firefighters, the medics. Shout out as well to everybody who works keeping the power on, keeping the water flowing, disposing of the rubbish. You know, this is all stuff that still needs doing, and people are still out there doing it. But on top of that, I know plenty of people who do not work in essential services, but who just can't afford not to go to work if they have the choice, because they wouldn't be able to feed themselves otherwise. So, while my day-to-day hasn't really been affected that much, I do understand that I am very much an exception here, and for the vast majority of people, day-to-day life over the last week or so, and for the immediately foreseeable future has been, and is likely to continue to be, on the rough side. In general, though, have you noticed how situations like this tend to bring out both the best and the worst in people? You've probably seen the news stories. People are getting mugged coming out of shops and having their toilet paper stolen. Seriously, yeah. There have also been reports of ambulance crews responding to emergencies, and when they leave their ambulance unattended to go to, you know, save somebody's life, they come back and find all of their disinfectants have been stolen. I even read a report of something similar happening, except in a children's cancer ward in a hospital. Yes, people are stealing medical supplies from children's cancer wards. It really makes you question your faith in humanity. But then at the other end of the scale, you've got stories about people pulling together. I was on the phone to my mother the other day, and she was telling me about how her neighbours keep checking in to make sure she's okay. Does she need any shopping? Does she have everything that she needs? You might be thinking to yourself, isn't this the sort of thing you ought to be doing, Jingles? And yes, you're right, but, well, my mother lives 400 miles away, so it's not really practical. Here in the UK, the government just ordered that all pubs and restaurants be closed in order to attempt to contain the spread of the virus. So that was the headline here a couple of days ago. But I found myself thinking, shouldn't the headline have been, "Idiots continue to go to pubs and restaurants in the middle of a viral epidemic"? How stupid do you need to be? But then again, nothing really surprises me anymore when it comes to the depths of human stupidity. I just saw another report that people are flocking to beaches and parks. The government is urging everybody to practice social distancing. They're shutting down places where people congregate, schools, pubs, restaurants, nightclubs. And in response to this, British people are going to the seaside. They're packing themselves into the beaches and the city parks. You wouldn't believe the pictures on Facebook and Instagram. People jammed in, elbow to elbow, on a shitty British beach. They're not great places to visit at the best of times. And this is definitely not the best of times. Up in the northwest in Cumbria, the Lake District has been reporting higher than average numbers of tourists for this time of year. What the fuck is wrong with people? I'll tell you what I think is happening here. It's because the schools have been shut down. And parents don't know how to handle having their kids shut indoors for an entire week. I mean, it's even worse than the summer holidays, because the kids could at least go outside and play. But now they can't do that. So they must be driving their parents mad. Because madness is the only excuse that I can think of for this. Well, we can't go to work, kids can't go to school. Well, let's go on holiday. But do you not understand why you can't go to work and the kids can't go to school? Our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, old Bojo the Clown, not the sharpest tool in the box himself, but even he was appalled. He was on television just the other day, trying to get through to these idiots that this isn't a holiday, you know. I mean, this is a global crisis, and taking in fresh air doesn't make you immune to the disease. I guess we should go ahead and add another group of people to the list of categories that are most at risk from the virus: the extremely young, the extremely old, those with underlying health issues, and the terminally stupid. At the same time, though, it's good to see how people and organisations and businesses are rallying together in order to try to help out, given the current circumstances. Tomb Raider's available on Steam free of charge for a very limited time. Good Old Games is giving away 27 PC titles completely free of charge, and looking over the list of titles available, I couldn't help but notice a couple of classic adventure games like Beneath the Steel Sky and Allure of the Temptress. If you have an Epic Games Store account, you can get Watch Dogs 1 and the amazing Stanley Parable completely free of charge until the 26th of March. And then, of course, you've got all of those games that are free to play anyway. League of Legends, Defense of the Ancients 2, Smite, Warframe, Call of Duty Warzone, World of Tanks, World of Warships, War Thunder, Apex Legends, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dauntless, Path of Exile, Star Wars The Old Republic, Let It Die, PlayStation 4 and PC only, Brawlhalla, console game, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC and Switch, Tetris 99 on the Switch, World of Warships and World of Tanks both just gave away 2 weeks of premium time if you're stuck at home and you've got nothing better to do. On the other hand, if you just want to veg out in front of the TV and watch something, there are all kinds of free TV shows and movies that you can watch. And no, I'm not talking about Pirate Bay. I mean legally free TV shows and movies that you can watch. I'm sure Netflix and Amazon Prime are doing a roaring trade at the moment, but there are completely free alternatives that don't require even a monthly subscription. Sony's Crackle, for example, it's an advert-supported streaming service, offers both movies and TV shows. There's also IMDb TV, which is another advert-supported streaming service. It's actually owned by Amazon, but it's completely independent of Amazon Prime. Do you have a library card? Check to see if your library is partnered with Hoopla. It's a digital media service that allows you to check out all kinds of stuff, including movies. And when you borrow one, you've got 72 hours to watch it. And as well as streaming video, Hoopla also allows you to download and watch offline for later viewing. Just Google free entertainment, and thanks to the coronavirus pushing this sort of thing right to the top of everybody's search lists, you'll find all kinds of stuff that's either always been free and you just didn't know about it, or has been made free as a result of the coronavirus. And of course there's always YouTube, but well, you already knew that, or you wouldn't be here listening to this. So that covers entertainment, but what about business? Because if you're a small business owner and your business is not online, there's a fairly good chance you've been hit pretty hard by all this social distancing. Now, I can't speak for everywhere, but here in the UK, well, a couple of days ago I got an email from my accountant. I paid my taxes recently, and oh yeah, more on that in a moment. But yeah, again, back to this email. Let me just flash up my email browser. So it turns out that the government is providing assistance through the delay of collection of tax bills through the launch of a new time-to-pay regime. They're also abolishing business rates for 1 year for small firms in the retail, leisure and hospitality sector, including hotels, restaurants and coffee shops. Exactly the kind of businesses that are being hit the hardest. There's all kinds of stuff available, at least here in the UK, to help out small businesses in these vulnerable sectors that are being affected by the coronavirus. It's all really good to see. None of these tax breaks apply to me, of course. I'm still paying the full rate and I'm still expected to pay it on time, but yeah, what are you going to do? But anyway, like I said, I did pay my taxes recently. So now I'm poor and in need of some cheering up. What better than some comfort food? Except now I'm poor, so it needs to be cheap comfort food. Imagine my distress to find out that all of the cheap food is sold out. You can't buy beans or pasta anywhere. Who's stockpiling all the beans and pasta? That's what I want to know. Is this some joint Mexican-Italian black market scheme to corner the market and raise the prices? Inquiring minds want to know. So like I said, I haven't been affected by the whole social distancing or self-isolation thing that much, but that doesn't mean I haven't been affected at all. I was actually quite lucky in that right before everybody suddenly started panic buying stuff, I'd had a big load of shopping delivered. I routinely get my shopping delivered. I very rarely actually go to the supermarket. It's just so much more convenient for me that way. I order my stuff through a supermarket chain that's called Asda. They're actually owned by the American company, Walmart. So anyway, my shopping arrived, and then as I'm packing everything away, I realised, because you always forget something. So running low on dried pasta, and I didn't have any oven chips. For those of you who aren't British, chips, I believe, are known as French fries in the rest of the world. Oh, and I also make my own bread, and noticed that I was running very low on strong white bread flour. I mean, I could probably manage for another week or so, but since I'm doing an order anyway for the stuff that I'd forgotten, we'll throw some of that in as well. So I headed back up to the PC and I logged onto the Asda website, tossed a bunch of things into my digital shopping cart: pasta, frozen chips, strong white bread flour, and since I'm here anyway, a couple of other bits and bobs that weren't essential but would be nice to have, and then went to organise delivery for the next day, which is normally the case with Asda's website. And I've even paid for an annual delivery pass because I basically get all of my stuff delivered. So I pay one flat rate fee and I can get preferential delivery and I don't have to pay extra for delivery. Hang on a minute. Delivery slots fully booked up for the next 3 days. I have never seen that happen before. I think to myself, maybe it's got something to do with this coronavirus thing that I'm hearing about on the news. People going out and panic buying toilet paper, for example. Didn't realise you could eat toilet paper, but hey, whatever. Actually, while we're on the subject, toilet paper is something that I have not had to buy in a very, very long time. I haven't suddenly stopped shitting. What happened? Again, you know, I tend to buy in bulk, but infrequently. So I'll buy a big pack, like 24 rolls of toilet paper. And the last time I did this, Rita came down to help me get all the shopping in. And while I was stocking up the freezer and putting tins of food in the cupboards, she took this big old 24 pack of toilet paper and she put it in the downstairs cupboard under the stairs. And I forgot about it. Well, it's not that I forgot about it. I didn't even know about it. Rita completely forgot about it. Well, about a week went by and I suddenly noticed that we're running very low on toilet paper. And I could have sworn I just ordered some, but maybe it's just me. So the next time I organised a shopping delivery, I ordered yet another mega bumper pack of toilet paper. At which point Rita said, "But we've got that." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "It's there under the stairs." Oh, for God's sake. So we're not going to run out of toilet paper anytime soon. But anyway, I'm sitting there staring at the Asda website trying to organise delivery for the few things that I still need. Oven chips, flour and pasta. And Asda can't deliver any earlier than 3 days. Okay, fine. It's extremely unusual. I've never seen this happen before, but 3 days is only 3 days. It's like this happened on the Wednesday, and they couldn't deliver any earlier than that weekend on the Saturday. So, fine, whatever. Go ahead, hit the checkout button, sort out my delivery slot. 3 days later, the delivery arrives, and they had everything that I'd ordered, except for oven chips, flour, and frozen pasta. Unavailable, apparently. Well, they were available when I ordered 3 days ago, but in that space of time, shoppers had been into the supermarket and basically emptied the shelves. There's a quote, and I've tried investigating, but nobody really seems to know who was the first person who said it. Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett said it in Good Omens, but Larry Niven said it in Lucifer's Hammer several decades earlier. The quote I'm talking about, there are many variations on it, but it basically boils down to this. Civilization is never more than 2 meals away from anarchy. If you only have enough food on hand to provide for your next 2 meals, or to provide for your family's next 2 meals, and beyond that, you do not know where your food is going to come from. Supermarkets are empty, or they're all closed, or they've all been looted. You don't know beyond the next day or so where you're going to get your food from. What would you do, or what would you not do, in order to ensure that you don't starve? A couple of days later, I'm still pasta, chips and flour free. I'm looking at Asda's website and they've just stopped delivering altogether. This all occurred at around about the same time that I started getting the emails. Asda sent out an email letting me know that all of their open 24 hours stores were no longer going to be open 24 hours, so they could actually restock and get stuff on the shelves that people had been panic buying. More emails from the supermarkets saying that they were reserving certain time slots during opening hours for the more vulnerable members of society, old age pensioners, people like that. And this was very good to see. Then I got an email from MCM Comic Con in London letting me know that the Comic Con in May had been postponed until July, which I thought was very optimistic of them. But of course I had a hotel booked for May, so I had to go through the rigmarole of trying to modify my hotel booking to make it for July instead. Imagine my surprise when it turned out that the hotel's website was experiencing extremely high levels of traffic and wasn't able to comply with my request. Then I got an email from the Tank Museum at Bovington letting me know that Tiger Day's been cancelled. Well, they didn't say cancelled, they said it's been postponed until August. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well hang on, don't they run Tiger Day twice a year, once in May and once in August? So if the one in May has been postponed to August, doesn't that just mean they've cancelled the one in May? Well, yes and no, but anybody who's already paid for and booked tickets for Tiger Day in May can still use those tickets in August. So, if you've already paid for a ticket to Tiger Day, you can still go, just not in May. You have to wait until August. And of course, I'd booked a hotel for that as well, so that also had to be cancelled. Stop me if any of this is starting to sound familiar. Basically, we're now at the point in the coronavirus timeline when the shit is starting to hit the fan, and large public gatherings are being shut down. Then I got an email from the company that I've booked my annual holiday with. Well, I say annual, I haven't actually had a proper holiday for the best part of 2 years. When I say holiday, by the way, for all the Americans listening, vacation. So here's the thing. I do love travel. I mean, I love going to foreign places and seeing things and meeting people and, all that good stuff. But what I don't love is the getting there and back part. Going through airports and just, oh God, no. So this year I thought, you know what? I'm going to book a cruise, because why not be entertained and pampered while you're going to and coming from all these places? And if you book a cruise, you get to visit a whole bunch of places. So we've got a cruise booked, going around the Atlantic Islands and stopping in Spain and Portugal. It's going to be nice. We've booked it for October, so my cruise hasn't been affected yet. But I got an email from the cruise company saying that they're cancelling all of their cruises up until the middle of April, provisionally at least. It's probably going to end up being extended. But what was nice to see was that they were offering full refunds, and they were waiving cancellation fees, and they were also offering cruise credit for 125% of the value of the cruise. So rather than cancel, you can actually book a more expensive cruise for the same price. And I've been seeing a lot of this as well. It's not just with this cruise company. Like I said, times like these bring out the best and the worst in people, and it's been really good to see that companies aren't trying to profiteer from this in the whole. It's been really good to see that even businesses in the hospitality sector, hotels, restaurants, things like that have been affected most by the coronavirus, and they're not trying to make a fast buck out of it. I've been cancelling hotel reservations, and the hotels have completely waived the cancellation fees. They haven't had to, but they're doing it. The cruise company are offering 100% refunds, waiving cancellation fees, and offering people 125% credit towards booking future cruises rather than simply cancelling. Supermarkets have realised that if people are just panic buying and emptying the shelves of basic necessities, then the more vulnerable members of society aren't going to be able to get stuff. And so they're shutting their doors to everybody other than more vulnerable members of society to ensure that they can buy basic necessities. They're clamping down on people selfishly buying more than they need to ensure that everybody gets a bite of the pie. At the end of the day, don't forget, supermarkets are in the business of selling things, and if things are getting sold out, that's generally a good thing for the supermarket. But it's good to see that they're taking on board a bit of social responsibility, because if people can't regulate their own buying habits, the supermarkets are regulating them for them, and they're putting limits on how many things that one person is able to buy to make sure that everybody gets a fair crack of the whip. And I really can't begin to stress how important this is. Remember the quote that I mentioned earlier? No civilization is more than 2 meals away from anarchy. If you don't know where your third next meal is coming from, that's when civilization descends into barbarism. It's great that people are being helpful and supportive to each other and they're looking out for their neighbours. But it's easy to care about your neighbour when you've got a full stomach. If you don't have a full stomach, or if you think your neighbour doesn't have a full stomach, your neighbour stops being somebody that you should look after and starts to become somebody that you should be fearful of. And that's where the trouble starts. Because if you have to feed your family and your neighbour has food, or if your neighbour has to feed his family and you have food, that's how the end of the world starts. Now, we're not there yet. I'm not trying to scare everybody here, and God forbid we never get to that stage. And I really, really hate to end an episode of Mingles with Jingles on such an apocalyptic note, but I guess what I'm saying here is that if the situation ever arises that you have and your neighbour doesn't, share. Because it's always better to have a friend than an enemy. It's entirely possible that I've been reading far too many apocalyptic end-of-the-world novels. Does it show? And anyway, the end of the world can't be near. My neighbours came through for me. My good friend Eddie kept an eye open and brought me some frozen chips, some strong white bread flour, and even some pasta, so it's all good. I know where my next 2 meals are coming from. If things get desperate, I can just eat the cat food. If things get really desperate, I'll eat the cats. And while I'm waiting for starvation to set in, there's plenty of free games that I can play. And now that I've probably either offended or scared everybody, I think I better quit while I'm ahead. And that is it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. Seriously though, all joking aside, take care of yourselves. Look out for your friends and neighbours, because the time might come when you could really use them looking out for you. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.